In this video, I'll be talking about the awful choices Izzytorium made with the 10.9 update, along with the ones that I like. I'm not going to make you wait, let's talk about Knockout, the mode that replaces solos and contains 40 rounds in total. So, an update to that. While making this video, Foggers released a tweet on the 13th of May stating that it would increase knockout rounds from 2 to 4, which probably also includes squads and duos, tweaking how some rounds works in squad and duos, and etc. However, the changes are not live as of the making of this video. And on May 15th, Izzytorium actually refreshed the round pool for the first time. I actually talk more in detail about that at the end of the knockout section, but I thought I would just let you guys know that yes, I am aware of the changes, because if I don't let you guys know up front, a lot of people are going to comment about it, and since this video is pretty long, I doubt most of the people who watch this video are going to make it to the end. The thing about knockout is that since it's limited to 40 rounds at all times, the round pool is incredibly repetitive, and since it lasts for 3 rounds, it feels like you're playing the same 3 rounds over and over again. Along with that, the elimination rates are stupidly high. Messing up or being a little bit behind could mean you're not qualifying, and if it's round 2, you might as well quit, especially if it's airtime or leading light. And since 57% of knockout contains creator made rounds, every game will include at least 1 or 2 of them, which makes out to 66% of a game. And depending on how you feel about them, it may not be much of an issue, or it's something that makes your face turn red and have steam coming out of your ears. And saying people are not a fan of the current round pool is putting it lightly. I'm not someone who hates on creative maps just for being made in Fall Guys Creative. To me, it doesn't matter where a map is made from, what matters is that it's fun to play, because if it's not fun, what's the point? There are some player made rounds featured that I really enjoy, like Dual Climb, the Jukebox, and Spacefall, and as I learn the others, I'm sure I'll end up liking them too. Although since the core modes have 3 rounds, Heat and Balance, which always seems to appear at round 2, is an absolute nightmare. If you mess up once or twice, it's curtains. I also hate if you're behind somebody, the hex tiles get used up, making it difficult to catch up. Heck, Obsidian Peak has that too, along with using hex tiles as its main way of clearing the last section. Although you can sidestep it, but it does sacrifice a few seconds, and especially with how low the qualification rate is, a few seconds actually matters. However, while I don't mind the race maps, course maps, I just can't sit here and say that I like most of the survival rounds included. Most of these just boil down to blast ball, but in different settings. Like, was it really necessary to add 7 rounds that boil down to throwing party crashers and blast balls till the quota is met? I'm sure the maps played in a custom lobby with some friends or in a content creator's lobby is fun, but you won't be playing them every time, and it just gets super boring after a while. Especially Meowfall Royale. I have no idea how people die on that map. I just roam around until the round is over. Like, it's a fun hangout map where you just roam around emoting with people, but as an actual survival round, not all that great. BlastCon is literally a small island made with hex tiles and some drums. This map looks like it took 10 minutes to make. Eduardo Escape Pads is the same thing, but the tiles are spread out. I will say the Rhino statue does look kinda cool. Fall Royale is just too big. Although the tiles do crack, it just takes forever for the game to end since there's a ton of them. Lake of the Mountain continues the trend of being blast ball. You have to be playing really bad in order to die on it. There is a risk and reward factor to go into the top path since you could snag a party crasher, but you could die in the process. But the Rhino doesn't do much since the physics change kinda nerfed both the Rhino power up and blast ball. I did think the party crasher was a bit too powerful in the last update, so I'm glad it got tweaked because I felt like you got hit by a semi truck in the last update. I think the map should have had a bit more holes in the bottom path because it feels like you can camp there and not die. Also, you can land on top of the signage and just chill. I think it's because of the physics change in the mid-air control that this is possible. This probably wasn't something you could do in the 10.8 update, so I'm not surprised the creator didn't put it in the elimination zone there because you couldn't actually reach the top of the sign if you wanted to. Speed Attack has the opposite problem and where it ends way too quickly, especially a knockout. I blink and the game's over. I'd rather have a game in which the survival round ends fast, so I don't mind that. It has a chill beach vibe, which is nice. Lava on the Rhino has a zone structure going on, which is interesting, but it's just the same old story. As previously mentioned, these maps are probably fun to play once or twice in customs, but not every single time. Survival has been out for 3 months, and it's not like when Race came out. It's not like when Course came out, in which creative was still young and didn't have much tools or features, whereas now it does. In 3 months, Survival should have plenty of unique and interesting rounds you could have featured. Just disappointing picks all around. This is a minor nitpick, but I hate how some of the race rounds have a ton of moving objects, like in Webbed Heights with the hammers that knock you off the map since falling off means you'll be a bit behind. However, since it's a round 1, it's not that bad if you mess up, but it's still scary if you do. And with Virtual Vista, with, well, everything, especially the bean barriers, god, I want to just throw hands with this big boom blaster. I cannot tell you how many times this stupid circle has put me off the map. With practice, I'm sure I'll come to like this map, but my first impression is that this map is just cumbersome to play. Another nitpick 99% of players won't care about is how the description box isn't being used properly. Like, I get it. Some maps are super obvious, like congrats to this guy for getting a world record, but it doesn't help me understand your map in the slightest. Honestly, Miatonic should change the title and just call it description, because people don't even tell you how to play the map most of the time, especially in survival rounds where it would benefit the most. Plus, it's only 2 characters more than how to play, so it shouldn't be much of an issue. People have this strange attraction to the Unity rounds, and don't get me wrong, I love them too. However, let's not pretend stinkers like DoorDash and Fruit Shoot don't exist. The Miatonic original levels, primarily Treetop and Skyline Stumble, showcase the season themes and gimmicks really well, and teaches the player about the new obstacles in a clear and concise manner. It never felt grueling and unforgiving like some of these creative races. The respawn zone is one of the most underrated things they've added, but it's made some maps annoying to play. Like, it's a great way to block off exploits and allows creators to make the maps they want without having to worry about people finding a way to cheese their rounds. And since you could turn the visibility off, it doesn't make your map look ugly either. To me, I've always hated when creators put these little cracks where you fall and respawn, making it a grabber's wet dream. But those are some minor gripes I have. Let me know if you agree with them, let me know if you disagree with them in the comment section below. The thing with creative rounds is that they don't have the benefit of having variations. A Fall Guys variant can literally change the way you play the map in small ways, that sometimes changes the way you play a map entirely. If you're playing Fall Guys for an extended period of time, even if you got, say, Gate Crash, Treetop Tumble, Little Leapers, or Block Party, which made that round a C tier map at best into a B tier with just one variation. Perfect Match is also a perfect example. I swear, putting one baton changed that map in the way you play it entirely. Variations are a minor thing, but it's a Fall Guys staple that helps keep the game fresh time and time again. Once they add a way for players to make variation of their own creative maps, that'll be a game changer. Although most of the creative races aren't super difficult, especially if you're slightly skilled at the game, but let's be honest, they require a lot from the player, and the angle of mastering levels is just funny to me because with the refreshes, will we even have time to master them before they inevitably go away forever? Most of the people watching this video will be able to do so quickly, but can you expect the majority of the casual player base to do so? At least with the Unity rounds, they were in the game long enough for people to learn the ins and outs. Overall, you would think this means I'm happy or okay with Knockout, but the decision to add only 17 Unity rounds to the core modes, because remember, squads and duos share the same round pool as Knockout. With 17 rounds, the game had more rounds in Legacy Season 1 than it does now. 42% of the core modes contain Unity rounds. It might as well be 10% because I almost never get them now. This reminds me of SS4 all over again. Miatonic added 20 creative levels to solos and people absolutely hated them, and rightfully so, because those glorified tech demos were god awful. I feel bad for whoever unpaid intern was forced to churn out those maps. They probably work at the local Tesco's now. When I thought about how many original levels would be added, 17 wasn't what I had in mind. As the game gets older, people hold the Unity rounds with high regard, especially since most of them are usually unplayable through normal means and that they no longer make them anymore. But I won't deny it's most nostalgia of a better time. Most of the rounds were well made, had different themes, and played completely different from one another. In one map, you could be in a bowl trying to dodge snowballs, and the next you could be on a hoverboard. Can't believe it's been a year since Creative got launched and we only have 2 themes. The fact that Miatonic were great at making unique, one-of-a-kind maps with the Unity game engine. Some examples being Crack and Slam, Star Chart, Bubble Trouble, Hoopsie Daisy, Tiptoe, Hyperdrive Heroes. But those are just some examples of maps we may never get in Creative, or ones that we won't get for a long time. Though not all Unity rounds were great, DoorDash, Seesaw, Fruit Shoot, Egg Siege, and Power Trip are plenty of examples of Unity rounds that people are not fond of. With the exception to DoorDash, Seesaw, and Fruit Shoot, most of the maps cannot be remade, or you cannot make a map that's sort of equivalent because there's just some features of those rounds that are just not in the game. The decision to move on from Unity showed that Miatonic gave up on trying to meet player demands and that they couldn't keep up, which would result in long droughts of no content. So they decided to let the community do the work instead, and that rubbed some people off the wrong way. It doesn't help that we don't get consistent live events anymore or any new LTMs featuring Unity rounds. Heck, we don't even have any way of playing just Unity rounds in places that aren't customs. And even with this update, they actually removed the vault show as well, so there's clearly no way of playing maps that are no longer in the main game. And for the longest time, they didn't unvault any rounds, exactly 6 months in fact, all the while releasing updates that have more bugs than a 1-star Las Vegas motel, or that they stopped doing seasons, which was a key part of Fall Guys. Most of the major decisions Miatonic have made in the past year have only been in the interest of creative, and that's great for the people who love it, but remember, it's only been part of the game for almost 25% of the game's total lifespan, and there are a lot more players who, when they think of Fall Guys, they think of that. Miatonic thought that since it's been a year since creative launched, they could push a ton of maps and people wouldn't be angry or react as much as they did back at the start of SS4, but they severely underestimated just how much people were tolerating creative, and this update was a straw that broke the Rhino's back. The change to 32 players and 3 rounds was way too drastic of a change. Like, you have no idea how much changing those two variables alone affected the game, especially for the casuals. It just felt like a whole different game. And while on the topic of casuals, removing Solo's Chill, which had a 100% qualification rate and was 3 rounds funny enough, made it to where the casuals have no real place to chill out and play the game. Explore, while a fun mode, is far too difficult for them, and since it's pulling from an infinite pool of rounds, casuals haven't developed the skill necessary to qualify on them consistently. And funny enough, they could have actually developed the skills if they actually had a consistent map pool to play, which Solo's Chill provided that. And this is important because a game will have far more casual players than pros, and casuals also have the potential to be lifelong players if they feel like they can actually win, which Solo's Chill allowed them to do so. Overall, this is a change that most people, even I, didn't care about at first until I actually received this comment from a user who said that their 6-year-old actually did play Solo's Chill, and now that it's gone, they feel bad for them. Honestly, it low-key made me feel kind of bad too. This change to me screams mobile first. Stumble Guys, a popular Fall Guys knockoff that at one point had more players than the actual game it was knocking off, has 32 players and 3 rounds. The fact that Fall Guys copied the game's player and round count to a T was strange, and with rumors of a potential Fall Guys mobile port coming out soon, it starts to make sense why they did this. Although this point is mostly moot because Izzytorium did announce it would actually be changing the actual round limit from 3 to 4, but it's still something to think about though. If the rumor of Fall Guys mobile is true, Izzytorium needs to capture the mobile audience because mobile gamers spend the most amount of money. The mobile gaming industry is ginormous and is expected to make just in 2024 alone $189.50 billion in revenue. If Izzytorium can get a little piece of that pie, if it means anchoring the existing player base, then they can afford to take the hit if it means profits in the long term. What's odd about squads and duos is since it shares a round pool from Knockout, that means team games aren't a thing anymore. While I wasn't the biggest fan of them, they added much needed variety to the game, and removing them makes playing those modes pointless in my opinion, as you can get better rewards by playing Knockout. But I suppose you plan on playing with your friends, then squads and duos will be the better way to go, I suppose, but I still just don't see the point. What's strange is that Hoopsie Daisy got unvaulted, but that's not the strange part, is that it got added to the solos game mode, aka Knockout, and is listed as a hunt round, when before it was classified as a team round, which is weird because we already had a solos version of Hoopsie Daisy, that being Hoopsie Legends. Apparently tail tag is in duos and squads for some reason, when we literally have team tail tag, and the map just doesn't work in tail tag. Like, literally the squad feed doesn't move at all. I don't understand the insistence of having the exact same round pool between all the modes. This just hurts the game in the short term and in the long term. What reason does one have to play squads and duos? The main reason you would play those rounds is for the unique rounds that you couldn't get otherwise. They made certain finales into survival, those maps being Crack and Slam and Blast Ball, and I'll be honest, I don't mind them being survival rounds. I would have loved to see Crack and Slam be a finale. It could have definitely worked with 9 or less, but making survival rounds have an elimination cap rather than a timer is an awful decision. It makes comebacks next to impossible. No, scratch that. It makes comebacks definitely impossible if your teammates died early, especially in maps like Swiveler. I've had games where my teammates have died early on, but thanks to it being timer based, I was able to catch up and qualify. But I wouldn't be able to do that anymore, making some maps harder if your teammates or you happen to get unlucky. All 3 modes sharing the same round pool sounds great, in theory that is, but if the map choices are bad in one of them, they're bad in all of them. With the release of the Fall Forever update, they changed the round limit to 3, whereas previously it was anywhere from 5 to 6, but it mostly stayed around 5. I'm not gonna lie, I thought 3 rounds might be good, on paper that is, and while I like how quick the game finishes, the issues with repetitive rounds are amplified with 3 rounds. I swear, every other game I get Hexa Spectre as a finale and either Webbed Heights or Obsidian Peaks as round 1. Even if people like the creative rounds or those rounds in particular, if you keep getting the same maps over and over again, there's only so much of it they're gonna take before they get bored and leave. Izzytorium did mention that they'll be refreshing the round pool, quote, on a regular basis, but they need to nail the next set of refreshes because it's not looking good for them at the moment. I'd recommend adding 20 to 25 Unity rounds in the next refresh and see how players react to it and if it helps player retention. The elimination rate is absolutely crazy, and do correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if a lobby has 32 players, which is the max amount of players you can get, round 1 has a qualification rate of 62%, meaning only 20 people can qualify. Round 2 has a 50% qualification rate, so only 10 people can move on to the finale, and obviously there can only be one winner, and as I've said numerous times, certain maps like Airtime, Leading Light, and some creative maps like Heat and Balance, and I'd say any race map, any course map require near perfect gameplay, otherwise it's GG. Another thing with making the last 3 rounds I haven't seen really people talk about is that it doesn't feel as impactful when you win, and on the flip side, losing doesn't really have that much of an impact since it was only 3 rounds, versus say you're playing squads or duos duos or even solos and you reach like round 5 or round 6, if you lose, it just hurts a lot. And since it's 3 rounds, you win a lot faster. So depending on what you care about, you may hate or love this change. This does make squads and duos a pain because if your teammates don't cross the finish line fast or survive long enough, you aren't gonna make it. Only makes those modes more harder to qualify due to the qualification limit being so low. I literally have to sweat my balls off in order to qualify. And if my teammate doesn't do the same or they constantly mess up, it's over. Especially if it's round 2. I had a game where my random didn't connect on round 1 and I managed to get first place on Whirly Gig and thankfully was able to qualify. But round 2 came and it was Jump Club. Because I didn't have a teammate, I was doomed from the start. If it had a timer, I might have been able to time it out and potentially qualify, but since it's elimination based and not time based, it was GG. And also I don't know why, but I feel like survival rounds end much faster than they should. I could be tripping, but I feel like they shouldn't end that fast. All in all, it makes the game feel a lot more competitive, which I don't mind when I'm playing alone, but in squads, it's just irritating, especially since all the modes except for Explore have skill-based matchmaking if I recall correctly. Personally, I love shorter games, and if it wasn't the fact that the round pool is 40 and incredibly repetitive, I might have loved this change, but unfortunately, I just don't. What's strange is that we haven't seen a limited time mode at all. At least for the first week of the update, there has been no LTMs. It just feels weird to see the game without it. I could be wrong, but I feel like the game always had an LTM since the reception in Legacy Season 2. I doubt Izzytorium could be removing them permanently since the round pool, player counts, and round limit changed all of a sudden. They probably need to adjust most of them, if not all of them. And since LTMs starting from Season 3 Second Secrets, aka SS3, made it to where if a map is vaulted, then any LTM featuring that particular map won't appear. And with refreshes, along with the game having close to no Unity rounds in the core modes, that probably means that most LTMs are out of the question. They did add some of them into customs, so I don't think they're going away forever. LTMs were the main way people could play Unity rounds without having to worry about creative, and also it was a good way for people to practice maps. If it wasn't for Slam Scripted time, I would have been nearly as good on that map as I should be. And LTMs in general just added this sort of variety that you couldn't get through normal means. And since LTMs are gone, people who don't care for creative maps have no real incentive to play the game. Even if you like the creative maps, you have to admit, LTMs being absent just feels wrong. Future's year, on May 15th, Izzytorium would actually do their first refresh, and in Knockout, they would make Kraken Slam and Blast Ball into a finale again. Along with that, they also added Jump Showdown. However, in duels and squads, they actually made quite a few changes. First of all, they removed Tail Tag, Leading Light, and Airtime. First of all, for Tail Tag, I just saw no point in having Tail Tag when they literally have a team version of it, and for Leading Light and Airtime, I'm very glad I decided to remove those rounds because if you were even off for even 1 second, it was game over. And they decided to add a few rounds for squads and duels, those being Fall Ball, Basket Fall, Team Tail Tag, and Penguin Pursuit. And just like in Knockout, they added Jump Showdown along with making Blast Ball and Kraken Slam into a finale. With Team Tail Tag, Basket Fall, and Fall Ball and Penguin Pursuit basically being in duels and squads, this means that no longer do solos, aka Knockout, have the same exact round pool as squads and duos, which is honestly great. I'm glad Izzytorium actually decided to listen to the community and actually come to their senses and actually added team games back to squads and duos. The reason people mainly play squads and duos in the first place is for the team games, is for the fact that it's actually different from solos or Knockout in this case. And while I'm not a fan of team games myself since I only play randoms unfortunately, this is still a very nice change even if it's a minor change. I do wish they actually added more rounds to solos, but squads and duos was basically balanced very horribly, so I can see why they actually decided to prioritize squads and duos for the first refresh. I think the first refresh coming out so fast was just in response to the player backlash in general, so I don't know if this is going to be a normal thing going forward, but if it happens every other week, I will also be happy as well. Love how that made my point of all 3 modes having the same round pool basically outdated and moot, but I'm still going to keep it in the video. Alright, now let's talk about the real important stuff like the social wheel. The social wheels contain 4 emotes and 4 stickers as I like to call them, and another wheel is dedicated to quick phrases and has 8 in total. For now anyways, you cannot add or remove phrases or change stickers, you're just stuck with the ones the game gives you, hoping that in the future we get more phrases and stickers and then we can choose what we want to have equipped, much like emotes. And the thing I love about the wheel is that you can no longer spam emotes, and that is such a fantastic change. Not constantly having to hear the music emotes is great. People were expecting the game to give you 8 options for emotes, but it's still 4, which isn't something I was expecting, but maybe they would allow us to replace the stickers with emotes, because I'm not gonna lie, the emoticons that they're called are kinda lame. I find the social wheels really annoying and cumbersome to use. Sometimes I flick to the thing I want with my controller and it doesn't work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's just really inconsistent. Also hope they give us an option to disable the feed so we don't have to see the phrases if we don't want to, because it gets irritating after a while. If you spam them, the chat gets disabled for 5 seconds seconds, which isn't long enough in my opinion. I preferred if it was 10 seconds instead. I like using them especially in maps where we have a lot of downtime, like most creative survival maps or Blast Ball, and it adds a bit of life to the game. And I have fun using them sometimes, but I won't lie and say it doesn't get a little annoying. The new feature of piggybacking isn't something I used a whole lot due to the fact that every time I try and give someone a ride, they pop off my back frame one. I haven't used it with a pre-made squad, but the times I've managed to give people a ride, it's been super fun to use. I feel like platforming while someone on your back is weird. It doesn't slow you down, and maybe it's something I'll have to get used to, I suppose. Although if you want to talk about annoying, the constant request for rides is just infuriating. On one hand, I'm glad it's in all the shows, but golly gee do I hate seeing the pop-up sound. I'll be remiss not to talk about the bug where if you use a snow angel emote while having someone perch on your back, the person in question will go through the floor and stay there. According to the comments I received on my community post, this was discovered by a user at CloudsFG, and as you can see from the video they made, the guy went through the tile but somehow didn't die. I did read a comment saying you could do this with a glitch emote, but it's very hard to pull off. Either way, I feel this is something that could have been found during playtesting, but with some of the bugs and the amount of them in updates, who knows they even have the proper time to do playtesting anymore. It's been a week since the update came out, and I'm already over this feature. Maybe if I ever get the chance to be in a party or play with my friends, maybe I'll enjoy using it and use it more often, but this feature is a unique one and a lot more creative than putting the fall guy in a car. This feels a lot more on brand. Let's talk about the Explorer mode, and as of the making of this video, I've played maybe 40 levels, so not a lot, and to be honest, this is the highlight of the update. An endless mode where you can keep playing Fall Guys creative maps, and with the ability to skip maps you don't like or don't feel like playing is just incredible. Along with being able to move on once you qualify is genius. Truly a well thought out mode. And while I did get some levels I wasn't a fan of, or levels that looked like it took 20 minutes to make, most of the maps I played were pretty good. At first when the mode came out, I was getting quite a lot of survival maps and not enough courses. However, Fall Guys Owl will let people know that they've made some adjustments to Explore and cut down the amount of survival maps you can get by half, which is nice. And on day one of Explore, when I went to get my rewards, the game didn't give out any shards, which I thought was odd since in the trailer it showed the player earning them. Along with the changes made to Explore, they also said they'd be giving out 5 extra shards, which makes me wonder if Explore was supposed to give out 5 shards but it was bugged. But either way, I think they meant to say it will give out 5 shards and not 5 extra shards, but that's fine. Don't mean to toot my own horn here, but I did say they would give out 5 shards in my Why I'm Worried About Fall Forever video. I assume it'll give out shards. How much isn't something that we know quite yet. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a low amount like 5. I don't get things right often, but when I do, it feels great. I loved how when I was playing Explore, I got this faint pass runner map, which was made with the intention of finishing your dailies as fast as possible. Because before the 10.8.1 update, you could finish your challenges for maps found in the Discovery tab, but they put a stop to that unfortunately, so it's funny seeing the map in Explore. And I also saw a sushi restaurant map, which is designed to be a hangout map. I was confused when I got this at first, but I went back to the start and saw the finish line right next to it. This was chosen by an algorithm and not by humans, so it makes sense they would choose maps based on likes, and the algorithm probably looks at how many people qualified on your map. If it's high, then it's most likely to get chosen. I don't know if it's just my connection, but I wish the search for new levels was a bit faster. Once I play a ton of Explore, then I might make a dedicated video on it, but for now I'll leave it at that. The Discovery tab is finally out of beta. First added to the game in the Power Party update aka 10.6, which released on December 6th, 2023. It had 5 rows: daily trending, weekly trending, newer rounds, hard, and recent hits. They'd add chill rounds later in the update. However, with the 10.7 update, they would add 7 new rows, those being art, puzzle, parkour, co-op, prank, hangout, and quick. In 10.8, they added weekly survival trending party only, which would hold survival maps that you can only play if you're in a party, since if you try to play survival rounds by yourself, you'd instantly win. Currently, the Discover tab has 5 rows: weekly trending, weekly survival trending, art trending, hangout trending, and finally hard trending. A bunch of rows are missing, such as a puzzle, parkour, co-op, prank, quick, newer, chill, recent hits, and daily trending. Really strange how daily trending is missing, since it's been here from the beginning. Chill rounds being gone is odd, since you think those are what they want players to enjoy and play more of often, since they advertise Explore mode as a chill experience. Ever since they stopped letting you use rounds found in Discovery to progress to the challenge board and earn fame from it, I stopped caring about it. This section is unscripted. It just gave me like 40 seconds long because I literally forgot to write this in my script. In the map splash screen, they actually added this little ticker bar at the bottom, and it shows you like basic tips, like press this button to jump, tells you about knockout, tells you about Explore, it just tells you like beans left to dress up, just like really basic tips. But this is literally only useful to people who've installed the game maybe 20 minutes ago, but I just don't know how many of them they exactly added. And my opinion is that yes, it's a thing, I guess. I don't really know can't know why. Like, okay, I mean, you could literally learn mostly just by playing the game, so it's whatever. Fame Pass 10 came out on the same day as the 10.9 update, making it the second Fame Pass to do so. The first one being Fame Pass 6 that came out with the 10.5 update, aka the Tool Up update. It's 70 tiers long, and the later tiers do need you having to get 12k fame, and with the increase to fame you get from rounds and the challenge board, it's not as grindy as Fame Pass 9 was. I'll go into more detail about that in my 10.9 breakdown video. Most of the skins in the past look very similar to skins we've already gotten. A Terabyte T looks like Perfectly Fierce, which was in the Fame Pass 8. Rainbow Corn is a combo of Horsey and Fairy Corn. Reusing assets isn't anything new and is quite common in game development, and the reason being is that it's just plain efficient, and creating new assets takes time and money. So it's more costly and time efficient to reuse pre-existing assets, while past Fame Passes have had some rehashed skins. This one takes it to a whole new level. Overall, this pass to me is much better than the grind fest that was Fame Pass 9, and the amount of fame you get from the challenge board is 85,000 in fame if you finish the dailies and weeklies, whereas in the 10.8 update you get 35,100 fame if you finish both the dailies and weeklies. Though with the current challenge board they aren't giving out kudos, this is something I don't see enough people talking about, and listen, I could easily live off the kudos I've accumulated from the game going free to play alone, but the only way new players can earn kudos is through the Fame Pass, and that only gives out 6,200 kudos. And here's the thing, most of the kudos are also spread out as well, so you're not getting all 6,200 of them at once. You used to be able to get 2,000 kudos a week from the challenge board. Like, I know 2,000 kudos a week isn't a lot to begin with, but combined with how much the Fame Passes give out, and usually they release the kudos celebration event at the start of an update, which they didn't do for this one for some reason. Either way, the only source of kudos being the Fame Pass sucks for new players, and the problem of them not being able to buy wearables from the store returns. Also weird how the daily challenge only has 3 challenges. It feels like it's a mistake, but it's been about a week now, so it's probably intentional. In the 10.7 update, they actually removed kudos wearables, which were basically skins that you could buy with kudos. I like to call them half skins, but the proper name is wearables. But in the Fall Forever update, aka 10.9, they brought kudos wearables back, which is honestly great. I'm very glad they decided to actually bring them back. At first I was saying that it was actually a bug, but I think they actually did remove the kudos wearables for whatever reason. Maybe it was bugged, or maybe they just decided they wanted to test it out to see how people react, but either way, kudos wearables is back. Even though Izzytorium refreshed the round pool on the 15th and actually got rid of tail tag and actually leading light and airtime, I'm still going to talk about what I experienced just playing duos, because I didn't get a chance to play squads, I just played duos. And I'm not going to lie to you, playing duos for the first few days of the update was genuinely a horrible experience. I would rather play SS2 and SS3 all over again than even play duos. Like, I only played one game of airtime, and the instant that me and my duo qualified, the game was over. Like, everyone qualified at the same time. Like, normally first and second place would usually qualify at the same time, but the entire game, like, if me and my teammate made one little error, even if we were off the zone for like 2 seconds, and most we would not have qualified. Now, I did manage to play a few games with leading light in duos and in knockout, and in duos I made one horrible play by going for the button because I thought it was going to come to me, and even though my partner was actually in the zone, just because I was off of it for a few seconds, we didn't qualify. So both of us had to be in the zone, otherwise none of us were going to make it. And I had a game of Swiveler where I just messed up and made a horrible play, and we were actually qualified, we were actually playing decent, but all of a sudden we were just in the red. My duo partner actually left the game, and honestly I don't blame them, I would have done the same. And I'm sure playing squads was equally horrible or even more so than duos, to the point where Izzytorium actually focused on the contents of the first refresh to squads and duos. And while looking at the list of the first refresh, I actually glanced over the fact that they actually removed volleyball from squads and duos. It's still a knockout, but it's not in the team games, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's because volleyball is just broken in squads and duos. I don't know why, but sometimes volleyball will just work and other times it'll just be broken. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the bug in where you spawn and the other team doesn't spawn, so it just automatically gives you the win. But there was also a bug in where even though you automatically got the win because the other team didn't spawn, the game would assume you're AFK even though you're spectating. The little experiment in where knockout squads duos showed the same round pool lasted for 8 days, and it was genuinely one of the strangest decisions they could have made. While yes, knockout did used to be called main show way back in the legacy days, and it did used to have team games, but Fall Guys has changed so much within the past 2 years now since the game went free to play, and they had no way of implementing the squad points tracking system they actually have in squads and duos into knockout, so the ultimatum was just to remove team games from squads. And they obviously couldn't remove certain maps from the game, so they said, you know what, let's implement solo games into squads and duos, so like tail tag for example, and clearly it didn't work out. So they had to revert the change and actually put team games and actually make it to where the round pool is different from squads, duos, and knockout. And honestly, it should have been that way from the start. Let's quickly talk about the creative finales that are currently in the core modes. I do not like roll and ruins. If you're behind even for a little bit, it's potentially game over unless the person in front of you manages to mess up. But in higher SBMM games, that's not happening. I had a game of roll and ruins, I believe was in duos, in which everyone spawned on the same side. The beanballs were all spread out. Fan Siege rotation is a round that I flat out hate. Played it maybe 3 times and 2 of the deaths were something I couldn't react to. It feels like you could die at any moment, and the worst part is you don't even know when or how. It's just super confusing all around. Breaking Blast Ball was a round I didn't like when I first played it, but I've come to really enjoy it. I don't know why, but just something about the floor being boxes that just gives it this extra element of surprise. That it looks like it was made in 5 minutes, and I won't deny that. But hey, just because a round took like 10 minutes to make max doesn't mean it's a bad round. But on the flip side, if a round took like 10 days to make, that doesn't mean it's automatically good. Trampeles Tromposo is currently my favorite creative round that's in the game right now. Something about the floor randomly opening up, having to maneuver around the map and stealing rhinos so people can't use them is great. It's exhilarating. When the round came out, the rhino statue was much closer so people were able to leap to it and avoid the chaos entirely. I think the new physics made this exploit possible, otherwise it wouldn't make sense for the map maker to put it so close otherwise. Hexaspectre is a finale I'm very familiar with, and it's the one that I played the most, and it's just hexagon with the ability to turn invisible, which does add an element of chaos, but I hate how the tiles are so big because you end up hitting tiles you don't mean to. Scaling up tiles does have that effect, unfortunately. I love the look and feel of the map, however I wish I didn't get so often. Overall, most of the finales are just like Blast Ball, Roll and Ruins sucks unless you're in the front, and Hexaspectre is hexagon but you can turn invisible. With the exception of Roll and Ruins, all of this is stuff we've already seen before. I haven't had a chance to explore all the new things added to creative, especially the rotation controller, so I'll keep the section brief. 30-minute timer is pretty nice, especially in conjunction with Explore. The invisible checkpoint did end up being a separate object. Thought it would be a setting you could change in the checkpoint, and it works a little differently than I thought, but I'm glad to see it's here. The new song Yada Yada is a banger. It was composed by Leonardo Lima, and I believe Heat and Balance is the first creative map to use it. Well, the first creative map that's a knockout anyways. With the 10.0 update, they announced that they'd be tweaking the physics, and yeah, they certainly did. Let me say, I absolutely love the ragdoll changes. You basically never ragdoll now. I'm letting the stick bonkers near the end of winter games wail on me, and I'm not getting knocked off or just even ragdolling at all. I've been hit by the hammers, and all it's done is boost me forwards, and even the baton in Whirligig just hits me forwards now. Feels like ragdolling isn't even the game, which to me is great, but I could see others not liking that change since ragdolling is one of the key appeals to a game like Fall Guys. The changes to jump was something I got used to pretty quickly. I've heard that some maps have new struts unlocked because of the changes. I'm not sure what maps exactly, but do let me know in the comments. Although bunny hopping at the start of Whirligig doesn't really feel as useful as it did before the changes, and it's much easier to land with the beam and tail tag, like significantly easier. It's like they gave the beans a little bit of low gravity with every jump, and I personally like it. The mid-air control isn't something I notice all that much, like I can feel it sometimes, but I probably need to play more games in order to notice it fully. I'm gonna be honest, when the update first came out, I found the landing control to be completely useless. However, after playing with it on, I like it a lot, especially Survivor Finale Zag Tarampella. There's also the change to reach top speed faster, but I didn't notice. At least as of right now, I like the changes to the physics, but I'll need to play more maps in order for me to make a definitive judgment. After they added the Discovery tab, I stopped using customs to complete my challenges, but I pop in every now and then, and the custom lobby lovers are eating good right now. They brought back a bunch of old LTMs like Hard Mode, Fan Favorites, Slam Survivors, and my baby Slam Scripper time is back. Love how they put all the rounds that are currently in Knockout in customs, so you can practice those rounds by yourself, and those include Unity rounds, so you can play Roll Off and Lost Temple by yourself, which is the first time they've added singular Unity rounds to customs. Like, I'm genuinely happy they did this, like I really am. I've been needing to practice Roll Off, and this is the best way to do so. What's weird is that Hard Mode and Fan Favorites say it needs 1 to 4 players, but when you select them, it says you need 40 players. This will probably get fixed with a content update, or is probably fixed when you watch the video, but I found it funny. Also, Jungle Jumble and Party Time Tumble can hold 60 players. I do think this is a bug, but I hope it stays so you can have a way to play 40 to 60 player games. They also removed the Vault show from customs. I'll be honest, I never played the Vault, but it sucks that you basically have no way of playing maps that have been vaulted. They would also remove the game files for certain maps like Freezy Peak and Hyperdrive Heroes, for example. So if you got them in some LTMs, it would disconnect you since they aren't in the actual game. People have been saying that vaulting won't be a thing anymore, and I guess if they remove all the broken maps from the game itself, then yeah, technically it isn't a thing, even though it's still clearly here. I'll quickly talk about the bugs I personally found. In my breakdown video, I'll talk about bugs you guys found, but so far, I surprisingly haven't found any major bugs, well except for one, that being our old friend failed to download. Gotten this one in Knockout and Duos, however not in Explore thankfully. The views name bug still overlaps with the fall feed and squads and duos. The bug in customs where it says connecting to the server but never does is here. In creative, they changed the way tags are displayed. When I go to select multiple tags, it only shows the first one I have selected. I go and deselect one and then it shows both. Had this one bug in the Fame Pass where even though I unlocked the nickname, it still assumes I didn't. Even went into the locker to confirm I have it, and yeah, I do. Funny enough, it did get fixed a few hours after I made the recording. With this update, they changed some semantics, swapping out all the instances of show and changing it to game. I'm sure I'll find more if I go looking for it, but this little change represents the end of an era. Fall Guys was based on TV shows like Takahashi Castle and Wipeout, and you could see this clearly with Legacy Season 1. You weren't playing a game, you were in an episode. Solos wasn't just a mode, it was a show. Most people never called a game of Fall Guys an episode, so a change like this doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Calling it a game selector instead of show selector scrubs away the charm of Fall Guys in favor of being familiar to a wider audience, and in a way it lets people know that the old Fall Guys, the one with seasons and original levels made in Unity, are long gone. I know things can't remain the same forever as stagnation leads to death, especially in the world of live service games. It just feels like a part of Fall Guys died with the name change. While on the topic of change, Mutanic updated the race category across the board, so any map that had the race tag will now be called course, even the Unity ones. The name change was presumably done due to Fall Guys Creative and how not every map made in the race game mode was necessarily a race in the traditional sense. Like some maps give me a hangout map where it's just a sushi restaurant or a Pokemon pixel art, and you just need to look at the Discovery tab and it has a bunch of maps in different categories that wouldn't necessarily be fit to be called race. I get why creative maps got the change, but why the Unity rounds? I feel like course should have just been given to creative maps in my opinion. You could say it's an obstacle course, so the name change makes sense all around, but I guess they don't want to create more of a divide between creative and Unity. The race category is such an iconic part of the game's history, and seeing it go away just makes me sad, and this isn't something I hear people talk about at all. I was really excited for this update when it first got announced. I was a little worried about Knockout and the pill limit changes, and I'm not gonna lie, it's one of the worst things they've done since vaulting most of the rounds in SS2. It's a shame because Explore is a fun mode and the play limit rounds are pretty decent, except for the survival ones, and the changes to ragdolling is great. However, the decision to make it 40 rounds and make it last 3 rounds was made to appeal to the casual audience, but they can't qualify due to how difficult it is to do so, especially squads or duos, and your hardcore base hates the changes as well. And while these changes are not live, the elimination rate actually getting adjusted and them going from 3 rounds to 4 rounds will definitely make a bit of a difference, but we'll have to see how much of a difference it makes. And them getting rid of leading light, airtime, and tail attack from duos and squads was also a good choice. And my first impression of the 10.9 update so far is that it's kinda horrible, not gonna lie to you. Did you know a mobile port of Fall Guys was announced all the way back in August of 2020? Click on this video on screen to learn more about that, and thank you to our Max members for your support as always.